Hello everybody and welcome to Carry Out Measurements and Calculations. I'll be your instructor, Jason Riley. I'll have you for 3 sessions for 30 minutes per session. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is a bit of housekeeping. If the alarm goes off, we have to make an emergency exit. Go out this door, out into the car park, and there'll be a gathering section out there, and you'll be instructed from there on where to go. Then you go to the toilets, out this door, turn to your left, first corridor on the right, the toilets are down there. We've also got machines if you want something to eat or anything like that. Can I ask that please, that we make sure all phones are off for this session? Also, I'll have an attendance sheet here. You guys please take that around and introduce yourselves while we're doing that?
Everyone on me, so yes. I'm Juanita.
All right, now you guys all work together at the rental repair company. Now, I take it your role out on site and measuring stuff and doing things and this and that. So we're going to cover a bit of that in the session today. All right, that's all good. Now, I've also sent out an email prior to this session, about also the other 2 sessions that are coming up after it, and about some videos for you to watch prior to this session. One of the videos was how to use a tape measure. Another one was how to use the steel ruler, and the other one was how to use the calculator. Just confirming you've all got that.
Yeah.
You all went through that with your managers?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're all happy with all of that?
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, well, good. Yep, I filmed those videos myself, so I hope you like them.
Great, good work.
This will be a stress-free environment. Any questions, anything you want to ask, feel free to ask. Don't hesitate. If there's anything you want to add, feel free to add to it, the presentation as well. You guys are out in the field every day doing this all the time, so all the knowledge is amongst all of us this session today. So anything else that you guys want to ask any questions about? You're all happy with them, so we can move on?
Yeah.
Okay, all good. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to explain the course and what you'll be able to do at the end. Okay, so this course is, as you can see, carry out measurements and calculations. And what you'll be able to do at the end of this course is that you will be able to determine what tool you'll be using to measure, the appropriate tool for the appropriate job. So if it's a bigger area, you'll be using your tape measure. If it's a smaller one, you'll be using your steel ruler, and you'll be using your calculator with that to work out your formulas, work out your distance, your area, parameters, but all those sorts of things will be covered later on. Okay, now I've also got some on the table for you today of these tools. We're going to go through them later, just have a bit of a go, play around with them and have a look. Okay. Now, the structure of this course, we're going to obtain work instructions and or briefs for undertaking measurements and calculations, identify units or measurement used in the construction industry and convert them to measurements. So that's what the whole lot's going to be about over the whole 3 sessions. Okay. Anybody had anything to do with this before?
Yeah, I think we do it, on the job and
Just need to sharpen up your skills a bit more and all that?
yeah, a bit of a refresher.
Okay. All right, we're going to get stuck into it, and just with the classroom rules, just make sure, has anybody got any allergies or anything like that, or no allergic to hard work or anything like that? Or
I got your question. What do you mean convert units? What do you mean by units of measurement?
So we're going to be converting millimeters into centimeters, or millimeters into meters, and meters into millimeters.
Right.
Meters into centimeters. Yep. So yeah, you'll work out which ones are the best ones to use as when you're out on site measuring it. Okay. So the purpose of this and what we're going to be using is the types of information You may need to access the following sources when obtaining and calculating measurements: plans, drawings, and specifications. Now, we have our own, or your company does in your own environment, have your plans, drawings, and specifications. And you will have measurements on these drawings. You may not, but you may do it, and you can run off those measurements. We'll also have your safety data sheets, your job safety analysis. Now, your job safety analysis will be your JSA that you fill out every day prior to work commencing. That'll identify the risks and hazards out on the work site, and you'll be putting things in place to accommodate them. Your legislation, regulations, and codes of practice and Australian standards. Now, we won't be covering that in this session, as you've already done this before in your induction with your company. And your company has got the links of where to find these on your own internet webpage.
Yeah, there was one time on the job site, I just remembered like one of us said they started us working and then there was a safety issue. But
But you didn't know that?
So we know that what the protocol was, but at the time, I don't know, my mate was just saying because it's pretty just like leave it. There was it's a bit of a story. Like I could just keep going into it and let you go.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, we'll cover it later. And as I said, if you feel like you want to have a story or enter this session, feel free.
Yeah, because it was pretty crazy. I mean, like some of the stuff that's here, and then what they teach, and then what they do at the job site is like completely different.
Yeah, and I take it you guys would have utilised the hierarchy of control, and you would have put some risk management in place.
Well, that's what they should have done.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, guys. Yeah.
I know what your day is paid for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Exactly right. And you may need to access the following sources. Other ones are other people in the workplace, clients, workmates, employees, builders, contractors, architects, etc. So you can always go up and ask somebody else, oh, what's the go with this? And they'll help you out. Everybody will help you out on site. Nobody will treat you badly or tell you where to go or anything like that. So feel free to ask people because they know that one day they'll probably ask you for something. Now, it is very, very important to measure accurately. Okay, so accurate measuring is important because incorrect measuring can result in wasted time putting you behind schedule, wasted material, costing you all the business money, ruined aesthetics such as incorrectly sized tiles. So we'll cover these. Wasted material. Let's just say you've got a fence post which is 6 foot high, which is the old scale. That's the old scale. But the new scale is 183 centimetres, which is 1.83 metres, or 1,830 mil. And it's got to go 30 mil, 300 mil into the ground. So you need 2130 millimetres of your fence post. You've got to measure it up. But if you cut that wrong, if you cut that short by 500, it's not going to be tall enough. So what have you done? You've wasted a bit of material. You might be able to use it somewhere else, but probably not that exact length, and you have to cut it again. And what this does, you've wasted the material, but also wasted time, putting you behind schedule. Okay? Now, you might also have a tile that's broken, you've got to replace it, and you cut that the wrong size. And you might put it in and think, oh, I'm just going to leave it there, and I'll fill up the gap with another tile, I'll cut that to fit it. But what you've done is you've ruined the aesthetic. So everything looks like one way, and then you've got this other patch of the tile which looks completely different. So, we've got to stick to our plan. We've got to do it properly. And remember the saying, measure twice, cut once. Always check any measurements you've taken before you use them. All right? Always be, double check and always be sure and certain you're the right thing.
The other mate, Jimmy, I remember that happened too as well. And it was a big cost to the company.
Yeah, it can happen. And Jimmy won't be the first one to do it, and he won't be the last one to do it. It'll happen. But we've just got to take care and we've got to try and minimise it. Ways of obtaining measurements. There are several ways to obtain measurements. You can read them off a plan or drawing, as we discussed earlier. Calculate them using other known measurements. So let's just say we've got the fence posts again. We've got ones that are good, but we're going to replace them anyway because we know that they're going to start rotting away. We can measure them. Things like that. Or we're going to replace the tiles. We can measure them. Measure them physically using the appropriate tape measure. Read them from the packaging. So let's just say we do replace windows. We come in multiple sizes and that, and on the packaging, it'll say what the size of the window is, the glass pane. Read them from the manufacturer's instructions. And the measurements we use are linear measurements. They measure the lines of distance between 2 points. Common linear measurements include length, width, depth, and height. Okay, so we've got length, and we've got the height, and the width, which will be depth. Another word for it. Okay, so if we're going to use this as an example, we've got the length, the width, and we've got the depth going down that way. Okay. And as I was saying before, we're going to be using millimeters and meters. They're our main ones. Centimeters, we could also use if you need, but if you find you're comfortable using that, but we have in a centimeter, we have 10 millimeters, and in a meter, we have 100 centimeters. So in a meter, we have 1,000 millimeters, but we're going to cover that in depth more in later sessions.
Why don't they use centimeters like generally?
Oh, because you get a more accurate reading with millimeters. And even sometimes people don't even use meters, they'll use millimeters going out to 6,000 and all that. But when we get bigger than that point, it might be 30 meters. So we're not going to say 30,000 millimeters. So 30 meters, we're going to bring
You
it
can
down.
imagine if they did that, right?
I know some people get confused, wouldn't they? All right, so we've got solid objects. And that's what I had before, this box. And for solid objects, volume is measured in cubic units such as cubic meters. The little three that follows the M in the meters represents 3 dimensions of a solid object, namely the length, the width, and the height. Because we're doing 3 measurements, like I showed you before, that's why it's got the 3 at the end of it. Liquids, when measuring the volume of liquid, we use a litre L unit of measurement. It would take 1,000 litres of water to fill a 1 metre container. So if that's 1 metre by 1 metre by 1 metre, it's the other way. It is 1 square metre, which is 1,000 litres. So when we've got to take water out on site like that, we know how much we've got to take when we measure it up in container volume. We don't already know the measurements of the containers. We measure it up. That's how you work it. We'll also be covering perimeter and area. Now, perimeter is a boundary or outside edge of the building, and the industry is used to refer to things like fencing, gutters, and external walls and length. So let's just say there's a grassed area and that's the fence. That's the perimeter around here. Okay. Area is the amount of space inside a boundary. So that'd be, if we had a flat surface there, that'd be the area. So like this here, perimeter is the outside and the area is inside of the perimeter. Square units are used for area measurements, such as metres squared. Now, because of area, we're going to be using 2 measurements, length by width, and we're going to be multiplying. That's for a square. For a circle, we've got other formulas we're going to use. We're going to be using that later, in later sessions. But for a square or rectangle, that's the way we're going to be doing it. And because it's 2 measurements we take, it's squared, it's 2m2 or millimetres 2 or cm2. Examples include floor area of a building, wall, ceiling, and roof area, floor area of individual rooms, area of building block. Now, has anybody used area or perimeter before? Anybody got any questions? Does everybody understand what area and perimeter is? And, okay.
Sorry, you go.
No, lady first.
So with perimeter, what sort of mathematical equations involved?
Okay, with perimeter, we're going to cover that off in the second session and that, but I'll go through it now. So because we want the outside of an object, we're going to it's like having a string all the way along. And once we get to the end of it, and we've got to pull that string out, we can measure the string. But what we do is we measure each side. Okay, so that's 5 meters by 5 meters by 5 meters and 5 meters. So that's 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 20. Okay. Now with a circle, we use a formula and we use pi. Not as in the food.
Oh, I wouldn't mind something.
Yeah, I know you'd love some pie, right? Apple, well, whatever. But we'll be covering area and perimeter in circles in later sessions. Okay? And we'll go through the formulas, and I'll be sending the formulas out to you in an email prior to the session. post the sessions with practice sheets so that you can practice what you're going to be doing. All right, because as I said earlier on, through these 3 sessions, we're getting the tools. We're also going to be using them, and we're going to put it in place. Everything you learn in these sessions. All right, and that's a picture of it there. That just breaks it down. There's our perimeter. That's the fence around here, and the area is the grassed area there. Volume. So volume is what we had this tub here, and we talked about it before. It's M3. The volume of an object is the amount of space it takes up 3 dimensions. To measure volume, we use the 3-dimensional units or cubic units such as millimeters cubed and meters cubed. Calculations of volume in the construction industry are used to determine things like the amount of soil to be excavated, tile adhesive required, sandy using bricklayers, mortar or tile screed, 10 and more buckets of paint, tubes or fixative required for a job, and concrete required for a slab. So as you see, you've got the slab here. I would have measured it that way, across that way, and that way. So length, width, and height. That would have got us our tube.
What are you doing on the weekend? Oh, what do they have for you? They get to eat something.
I must admit, I like the cats too. I have a cat at home. I'll show you a photo of my cat after the session. My cat actually, when I got my cat, I signed the deed of my house over to him.
Oh, cute cat.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Poppy,
Okay.
the wrangler. She runs us.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
So now what we're going to do here, we're going to have equipment for measuring and calculating. As I said, I sent out a video in the email of how to use a measuring tape, how to use a steel ruler, and how to use a calculator. So we are there, the little naked person there. So the learning objectives in this section will be, we're going to identify different equipment used for measuring and calculating in the construction industry and explain how each piece of equipment is used. Measuring tapes. Now we've all got a measuring tape in front of us. Okay. So the video showed that when you pull it out, you've got to push the black lever down and that locks it in because it can pull back on yourself and hurt you. All right. Now, measuring tapes are used for measuring long distances with a reasonable degree of accuracy. Made of a flexible metal blade in a metal or plastic case. Blade is coiled and controlled by a strong spring. So if I grab this one for you, so see how it comes back in? Like that? That's the spring. Make sure you keep your hands away from it. It can hurt you. So when you use it, like in the video, press the lock button down. Okay? Or you can use that button if you're out on site, like that. So there we go. Common tapes are 3 to 10 metres long. The ones you've got here are 8 metres long. Markings are 1 millimetre apart. So we see on the measuring tape there that we've got, in the video, we've got little, now you can hold it.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've got the little lines there. That's your millimetres going into centimetres. And it shows 10 centimetres there in red, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way out. And it's got 100 centimetres, which is your metre. Okay? Which is your 1,000 millimetres.
The other side of the tape has feet. Do we still use feet?
That's the imperial system. The Americans like to use feet. I'm not quite sure why. I did hear from a guy one time when I was in America, true story, back in 1997. He said they tried to introduce the metric system to us. My generation was just too dumb. I said it's 10 by 10 by 10, mate. It can't be any harder than that. So they use the imperial in gallons and everything, fluids. So so steel tapes are better suited for use on site. So what you'll be using them for is the larger measurements you've got to do. So you might have to measure the area or perimeter of a lawn that you're going to replace and for a garden bed and things like that. Now, looking after your measuring tape. Any ideas? Don't throw it. That's a good one. If somebody's annoying you on the work site, don't throw your measuring tape or anything else at them.
Haven't you ever tried to see how far it
Why can't we leave it exposed to the sun for big long periods of time?
The UV rays will damage it. Okay, that's your casing. And if you've got a damaged casing, the whole lot won't work.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So don't be rough with the blade or tape housing. So treat it with a bit of respect. Use it the way that you're supposed to be, you've been taught to use it. Retract the blade gently. So as you know, the coil comes back in. It goes pretty quick, but just setting, do it a bit slow. Control it. Keep the blade free from grit and moisture. Now the reason for this is if you retract your blade back into your measuring tape case and it's covered in dirt, moisture, what it'll do is it'll stay in there and it'll ruin the blade. So if you can clean it out, clean it out. Don't leave the measuring tape exposed for long periods to the direct rays of the sun. As we covered that before, that's because of UV rays which can damage it. All right. Has anybody got any questions about the measuring tape?
No.
All good? There's a picture of it. Same one, we've got the yellow one here. Yeah, we've got the yellow one there. The steel ruler. Now we've also got the steel ruler in front of you. Tradespeople in the construction industry are known to use the 4-fold ruler, which we haven't got here today. We're going to use a steel ruler. Okay. Markings are placed at 1 millimetre and numbers are written every 10 millimetres, same as the measuring tape. They will line up with each other. Total length and measure up to 1 metre, usually made of plastic or boxwood with a stainless steel or brass fitting. So that's the 4-fold ruler. We're using a steel ruler today, which is measured up to 300 mil, okay, or 30 centimetres, or 0.3 of a metre. Now, what you'll use your steel ruler for is for measuring smaller objects like this. So you might want to, you put your, yep, there we go. You can use your measuring tape on this too. As you can see, you can do that. But you might think, you know what, I'm only measuring something small. I might leave the tape measure back in the pocket and I'll just use this. Okay, so the reason why we have the steel ones, they're stronger than the plastic and because we're out in the field. And we do have the 4-fold rulers out there too, but just for this session, we're going to be using the steel ruler. Now, any questions on those?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, there they go, right, don't they? Yeah, no, they're tough, they're sturdy, and they line up with the measuring tape, do they? How good's that? Now, I also sent out the video for you for your calculator. Now, calculators, you can use a general purpose calculator to perform calculations on the job. Start with a small, inexpensive one to help you with basic calculations. As you learn more detailed estimating mathematics, you may require a scientific calculator. Okay.
Aren't those things like real expensive and stuff?
They are really expensive. And realistically, for what the measurements that you guys will be doing out in the field, you don't really need a scientific calculator because they'll have things like sine, cos, and tan. I don't know these guys, but they're on the calculator. So,
So I don't know if you guys know that, but very different that way when you use a calculator in front, it turns into a sign.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Jess knows what's going on. As I said, if you guys ever want to add anything to the session, feel free. So the calculator you've got here in front of you is the ones that your work has supplied with you. And I sent the video out on how to turn it on. So we've got the on button there and we've got the off button up the top there. So if you guys you could use the calculator in the phone, but work prefers that you use your calculator that's being issued to you.
Why is that?
Why? Because you might get distracted by the phone. You might think, oh, well, there's my calculator. Oh, but wait a minute, Facebook's next to that. Oh, look at that TikTok, look at that video. I haven't seen that video for a while.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, never mind.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So if you guys turn your calculator on and you were to say 8 times 15, should come up with 120.
Going back.
Yep.
All right.
So 8 times.
Yeah, I equaled it a couple of times. That's all.
Okay. So we clear it now. And then, yep, that one there, we go 8 times 15.
Yeah,
Then we hit equals.
beautiful.
There we go. All right. What about if we do 35 times 40? Should end up with 1400.
Yep.
Look at you, math in your head.
Yeah, I can do that. I can multiply any two numbers you want.
Definitely need to calculate.
78 times 80? 6240.
Now you're just showing off.
All right, so I've got a couple of objects here. You can use whichever type of measuring equipment you want to use. So we've got the box. You two, if anybody needs a hand,
Using the tape measure. Do we measure the inside of the box? Do we measure the outside of the inside? Because wiki rule is you have like a zero. The tape
Yeah.
measures you don't.
no, this has got a 0 on it too. And this goes to the end.
Right.
It goes to the end. Then go to the outside.
I mean, it's like still.
Look at that. What did you say?
You've got 30, so 300 plus 10 plus about 5, so you've got 315 millimetres.
What did you get? Can you read it? No. 10 centimeters, so that would be 11, 12, 13 centimeters, 13 and.
So 13.5 multiplied by 10 because it's in millimetres, it's 135 millimetres.
Yeah.
And would you use, if you used your ruler, would it come up the same measurement?
No.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly the same.
35. Okay. Where is it? Mine doesn't want to tell me. 140 that way. One that way. Oh, no. Yeah. No, it was 135. And there's 140 this way. So
Yes.
102 size. And 100. Oh. Not a square.
Oh, so it's rectangle. So we've got a rectangular
Trick me.
piece of wood. And has got any questions with any of the equipment we have covered just then?
Okay.
So worked all right?
Yeah.
So if we've got a large yard and we've got to measure the perimeter for a fence, what sort of measuring device are we going to use?
The tape measure.
Okay. If we've got a small window that's broken, only tiny little one, what are we going to use for that?
Probably the ruler would be the best.
And if we're going to calculate anything that needs to be worked out, what are we going to use for that?
My phone.
No.
Yeah, you calculate.
You can use me.
That's right, because you do the math.
Yeah, I'm the walking calculator. Now you'll be using your calculator. Okay. So that's what we're going to cover in the session today. Has anybody got any questions in that? No? No? Okay. So I just want to say that the next class that we're going to be doing, you've been sent the details of the date and time of where we'll be at. With that, we will be covering how to do the formula for perimeter area on a square, rectangle, circle as well. We're also going to be using the formulas for volume, for a prism, so sort of like a cube box like that, and also a cylinder, let's just say a paint tin. So that's what we'll be covering off in the next session. We'll also be covering off in the next session the conversion of how to convert. You'll have practice sheets of converting millimeters to centimeters and things like that, and the millimeters to meters, meters to millimeters. As well, in the next session, you will be having practice sheets for each one of these to do. All right. So, how did everybody find the session today? You all good? You're a bit more knowledgeable with what's happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, next session won't be too far away, so we'll get into that. But thanks for your time today. Has anybody got any questions about the next session or even this session that happened today? Okay, the email will also tell you, it's got videos, it's got all the practice sheets for it, but it'll also tell you what to bring for the next session and what is required. Okay, thank you for your time today. I'm going to close up the session and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jason.